Hey John, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
Nice.
great.
Still got a cough. This cough is going to last for a month. So
Is that your prediction or is that what you were told by other people who have the
that's what I was
cough?
told. That's what I was told by other people. So I hope it doesn't, but we'll have to see.
All right, we might as well jump into it. It's getting close to
Yeah.
Christmas here, and I know people are going to see this in January, February, but we'll jump into this now. We're recording this on December 23rd.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve. Good call. The biggest paycheck in corporate history is officially back on the table. The Delaware Supreme Court just named or handed Elon Musk a massive victory that restores his billions in stock options and completely changes who holds the keys to Tesla's future. So we had talked about this previously, but the Delaware Supreme Court has now reversed the lower court's decision that we talked about previously that canceled Elon Musk's 2018 compensation package. This reinstatement gives Musk back $304 million in stock, or 304 million stock options, valued at tens of billions of dollars, and crucially increases his voting control over the company. It's headline news because it signals that even if a corporate board is a bit messy with its process, delivering massive profits for shareholders ultimately trumps legal technicalities. What do you think about this, John?
I don't know what to think about this. I saw this the other day, and so I don't know enough to know. Like, I know he met the the milestones apparently. But are the milestones and like based on the board? Like, did he improperly influence the board? Is my question for this compensation package from the start.
Okay,
Um,
so yeah, and I mean, yeah, maybe, but a court decided that the process wasn't followed properly. Like the lower court.
yeah,
And although how I guess they worked out the compensation package, the shareholders had voted for it. And the question was there undue influence at the board level or what have you to change it, to give them more, to do whatever? Um, Ultimately, I guess the board voted for it, or the shareholders voted for it. Um, and the Supreme Court decided that based on everything, and the shareholders just voting for this $1 trillion potential pay package and everybody supporting Musk along this, that the Supreme Court said no.
yeah,
There you go. Think of it like a commission only sales job. In 2018, Tesla told Musk, we won't pay you a salary, but if you grow the company to a massive specific milestones, you get a chunk of stock. He hit every single target, but a judge took the payout away last year, saying the process was unfair. And that's what you're saying was there undue influence at the uh, board level to influence his compensation package? Were they let him do whatever they wanted, and was that in plain sight, and all that stuff got a little messy, and that's where the lower court jumped on it. So it's now, for everybody understand, it's important because it secures Musk's position at Tesla. He had threatened to build AI and robotics products elsewhere if he didn't have enough voting control, around 25%. This gets him much closer to that number and keeping him focused on Tesla. And I guess, to me, that's where that $1 trillion pay package is going to come from, is building the Tesla robots and hitting milestones where, how big does a company have to be if your bonus to your CEO is $1 trillion?
yeah, and I can't remember if you touched on this, but because of Tesla's stock price, the package, which was originally valued around 56 billion, is now worth roughly 139 billion.
Yeah. And they expect an accelerated push for full self-driving, and the Optimus robot. And Elon has said,
Yeah,
and lots of people have said, that these autonomous robots are going to be the biggest selling product on the planet ever. As Musk now has control, he wanted to pursue these high risk technologies. So Tesla avoids a $26 billion accounting charge they would have faced if they had to write up a new pay package today. Keeping the company's financial stable. Tesla is moving its legal home to Texas. In Texas, you effectively need $30 billion in stock to sue the company for bad decisions, meaning the average stakeholder lose the power to take Tesla to court.
Yeah.
But there's other rules and stuff. I mean, Delaware has become unfavored for a lot of corporations now that are starting to move their corporate out of there because they're challenging a lot. Where they used to be the easiest place to register and around tax and stuff, they're really making it hard. So people are starting to change that. And Tesla's one of them.
Where else are they going? Do you know? I'm putting on the spot.
Texas. Yeah, I don't know exactly what area in Texas, but most of them are going to Texas now.
Okay.
And I could see some moving to Florida, but we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah.
This sets a precedent that corporate boards don't strictly need to be independent from the CEO. The lower court found that the board was too cozy, as you suggested, with Musk, but the Supreme Court decided that the results, the stock pricing going up, mattered more than the messy process.
Yeah.
So governance experts are worried that this creates a king CEO era where founders can demand anything as long as the stock price goes up. Also, by moving to Texas, Tesla is insulating itself from accountability, making it nearly impossible for regular investors to challenge the board in the future.
Yeah. This is this is more legal stuff that I wasn't able to wrap my head around it too much, but I'm curious to see how this is going to impact future cases of this scale. And like you said, this talks to extreme pay packages with less effective oversight, right? Because if courts are going to be reluctant to intervene after the fact, then there's just going to be these ridiculous, like, did you see that one AI engineer that got, what was it, from Meta? I think it was like $2 billion or $1 billion pay package from Meta to work on AI, one of the highest ever. So
but that's just them being insane and realizing that all these companies are competing. They started with $100 million bonus checks just to sign on for some of these high-end engineers. And the people who think there's not high-paying jobs out there in AI, literally you're talking about $1 billion package for someone to go work for one of these companies being pulled away from another company. So the money's out there, but it's insane. Yeah. And what do you do when those are the pay packages and stuff? But if I think the key part of it wasn't here's the deal and I didn't deliver.
Yeah.
It's not like the golden parachute where somebody says, well, you lost the company, it's half the value when you took it over and blah, blah, and you still get your bonus.
Yeah.
So I think at least we're doing this point of view that you hit the milestones, the company's worth this amount of money. This was messy. There might be some rules around, hey, you go clean this up. Late, in the future, and other people, don't be like this, but you hit all the milestones. If somebody didn't hit all the milestones, I do not think it'd be as favorable.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on the Optimus robot and robotaxi announcements. Musk has the incentive to double down on those immediately. So this is a win for the Tesla bull. People who invest in Tesla, not as a car company, but as an AI robotics company led specifically by Elon Musk. So definitely keep an eye on that. And the courts have decided that in the world of big tech, performance is king. If you make the shareholders rich, the rules of the game become a lot more flexible. So does Elon Musk deserve a big paycheck, or does Elon Musk deserve the biggest paycheck in history for the work he did? Or is this failure of corporate checks and balances? Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll keep up with this story and let you know if it develops further.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of big, we're looking at a rumor worth $300 billion that could completely rewrite the AI landscape. If you think the battle for AI dominance is just about ChatGPT, you need to hear what their biggest rival, Anthropic, is planning right now. Anthropic, the creators of Claude, AI chatbot coding tools, are actively preparing to go IPO or raise an historic amount of private cash. They are reportedly discussing a valuation of over 300 billion, a number that would instantly make them one of the most valuable companies on earth. This is news because it signals that the AI wars are moving from research labs to the stock market, and Anthropic is building a war chest to take down OpenAI. What do you think about this, John?
I think this is great. So I'm not surprised. Anthropic isn't as valuable as OpenAI, but I think we talked about it in a previous episode that Anthropic is closer to a positive net revenue than OpenAI. But then if they go IPO, then yeah, there we go. So Anthropic's private valuation, it surged as it secures new capital. So Microsoft and Nvidia have committed up to 15 billion in a funding round that could value them north of 300 billion. And so this kind of sits against a backdrop where OpenAI is also preparing its own IPO and possibly at a valuation near 1 trillion. So Anthropic's move, it kind of reflects broader trends in AI financing. So heavy capital injections, large revenue projections, and intense competition among generative AI firms. And that's to define leadership beyond product metrics into public markets perception. So the potential Anthropic IPO, it's being watched. And it's not just as a milestone for one company, but kind of as a litmus test for whether public markets will still back high burn AI companies with massive valuations. So up until now, investors have been willing to pay top dollar in private rounds. So a public listing is going to show whether that confidence holds when share prices are exposed to daily trading, which is really interesting. So I guess my question is, who's going to go first? Who's going to IPO first? Is it going to be Anthropic, which I think, or is it going to be OpenAI?
Well, I don't think it'll be OpenAI.
No.
And I only say that because they still have some cleaning up to do versus their, hey, we're a not-for-profit. Oh, hey, now we're a for-profit. They still have to finish cleaning that up on the investment side and who gets what, and before they can fully do an IPO. Otherwise, I think they're still in a legal mess. So that I think needs to be cleaned up before they, and that's probably, a year and a half, 2 years away.
Yeah. Oh, you think it's a year and a half, 2 years away?
I think so.
Okay.
Just it's stuff that needs to be done. Like they're getting sued by everybody left, right, and center who made investments early on when it was a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
So they have to figure that out. That's all I'm saying before they jump to an IPO.
So do you think that it's beneficial to Anthropic to be first, or do you think it's going to be detrimental? We're getting into some deep thought here.
I think it'll be beneficial for them to be first because the reason is the public is itching to invest in some of these companies. And, let's face it, Claude is the number one tool used for developers. So almost anybody out there developing with AI would be jumping on this. Never mind everyone else, just because they know the value of it. I know people have the Ultra accounts and they have a bunch of them. They spend thousands of dollars a month with running this model because it does so many amazing things. So I think they've got a built-in public market, and that, I honestly don't believe that they'll have enough supply to meet the demand.
Okay.
I think the IPO will sell out in short time, is all I'm saying.
Oh, I think so too. But back to their high burn. So although there is positivity around the fact that they're the first to be net positive potentially.
Oh, absolutely.
I
These
think that's
companies
going to help them.
are like, they basically bring in trucks load of cash, put it in the middle of the floor, and burn it like the Joker in a scene from the Batman. And that's how fast they're burned through cash. So,
Yeah.
however, that's more of the things that investors look at, because a lot of, well, I say, the bigger investors, a lot of retail investors that once you start IPO and this stuff becomes available for, they're just looking at how popular it is. They don't, a lot of them are low information, and they don't really, they just think, oh, everyone thinks Uber's making money or OpenAI is making a bunch of money, and they're still losing billions every month, right? So, so at some point that conversation has to switch, and when they stop getting investment, they're going to be in trouble. So all of them are like that right now, because at some point, they're all fighting for the same market share, and it's a big enough market. And now's the time. Like, let's face it, the government is making multi-billion-dollar deals with OpenAI because they're a leader. Anthropic wants to get in on that pie, among everything else, right? Why can't they build part of Project Stargate? And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, versus just being, OpenAI. So I think in order to challenge the big boys, they have to do something like this to get a little more on the mainstream map. But I think the crowd that's itching for a major AI investment in the public market space that's well known, they will benefit from this, because if they're the first ones.
For sure. And I'm not gonna lie, I might do a little bit of day trading the day it goes IPO, because Anthropic is my favorite. But the thing I like about this is that an IPO essentially requires detailed public filings. So it's going to shine a light on AI economics, from annualized revenue run rate to R&D expense trends. So for AI startups where compute costs can dwarf gross margins, these filings, they could essentially redefine investor expectations for the industry. And I'm curious to see what their financials look like.
Yeah, I'm curious. We'll have to see what that looks like. But this gas injection ensures Anthropic can afford the 50 billion infrastructure they need to keep competing with Google and Microsoft and OpenAI. So, they need the cash injections to start building these huge data centers they're going to be doing. So we're just going to have to see where that goes, because the valuation above 300 billion. Sources familiar told Financial Times that the prospective private round could value Anthropic at more than 300 billion, which would represent more than a 10 times increase from previous valuations. So it'll be a big win for a lot of early investors.
Yeah.
And the report indicated a combined commitment from Microsoft and Nvidia of 15 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. Nvidia is the one who's actually making money off of this right now. And so are all the hardware providers for all of the data centers and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see what is going to happen. Maybe it's a strategy. And again, I'm not a trader at all, but I'm just spitballing. But maybe it's a strategy to invest in some of those hardware stocks right before these guys go IPO. Maybe those will go up too.
Yeah, this feels a lot like the early days of Google or Facebook going public. Anthropic is preparing to sell shares of the company to the public for massive investors to raise huge amounts of cash. So, but it's always a risk, right? I think when Facebook IPO'd, they IPO'd at like 70, but at the end of the day, they were worth 35 or something like that. It was definitely down. It took a while to get back up. I'm not saying it's not worth the investment. I'm just saying on IPO day, lots of strange things happen. And we don't give out investment advice here. This may be worth it for you or may not be. But it does feel like early days of these companies going public. And we all feel like, man, we wish we could have got in early on that. How early is the right time? What's the right value? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Critics are screaming the bubble, a 300 billion valuation for a company this young is unprecedented. If the AI bubble bursts or if government regulations crack down on AI safety, a core focus of Anthropic. that value could evaporate. So we'll have to wait and see. But at the same time, this could give them the thing they need to get to the next level and really take a run at the big boys.
Yeah.
So Anthropic is gearing up to prove that the AI revolution is just getting started, and they have the bank account to prove it. So is a 300 billion price tag a sign of the future, or the peak of an AI bubble, or something else? Let us know if you'd buy stock in this in the comments below.
By the way, did you get a dump of snow last night?
No. We got a bunch of rain and now it's sleet.
Okay.
All right. This might be an old story. I don't know where that date came from, but okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at a massive update to how we define artificial intelligence. So forget ChatGPT for a second. Scientists have successfully mapped the entire brain of a fruit fly and are actively turning it into software. If you ever wondered if the Matrix could actually happen, maybe you should hang around and listen to this. Yeah. This is the first time we've completely have a complete wiring diagram. What do you call that? A connectome?
Connectomics?
Connectome?
Connectomics? Or connectome, yeah.
Of a complex adult animal brain, the fruit fly. A startup called Amazing is using a map to build AI bottom up by mimicking biology rather than top down approach used by OpenAI or Google. It's headline news because it proves that we can digitize biological brain, paving the way for hyper efficient AI and eventually digital consciousness. Yeah. What do you think about this, John?
Yeah, so we did cover the fruit fly mapping, I think, but we didn't. This is the next step.
We did cover the fruit fly mapping before, and we didn't know what they're like. How are they going to take it now? They're creating an AI based on this mapping. So this is definitely the next step in all this.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah. So building on this fruit fly connectome. So the new venture, Memazing, I think.
Amazing.
Okay. Aims to go beyond static maps and create software emulations of brains. So in technical terms, this involves converting a connectome into a computational model where neurons and synapses are represented as mathematical nodes and weighted connections. So these models can then be simulated and observed to see whether biological patterns give rise to intelligent behavior. So for example, researchers can simulate visual stimuli and evaluate whether the software fly model responds in ways comparable to a real fly, which is super cool. And it's different from traditional AI approaches, which typically use statistical optimization on large data sets. And this is because this uses direct biological structure as the basis for computation. So technically, emulating a brain connectome involves neuroscience, machine language, and high-performance computing all at once. So the brain's wiring dictates how learning, memory, and perception emerge. But the exact mapping from structure to computation, that's what's not fully understood. So what Amazing attempts is to operate within that structure, using simulated environments to explore how synaptic strengths and networks dynamically translate into behavior. So what's cool about this is the project also intersects with efforts in AI energy efficiency. Since the biological brain operates with dramatically lower energy budgets than current AI data centers, a bio-derived computing paradigm could lead to more efficient brain-like artificial systems. And just on something else is, I think we did cover a bio chip that based in Australia before. So there's a lot of parallels here to all of this stuff. What do you think about this? I think this is kind of interesting, but I think we're far off from simulating the actual human brain.
Yeah, definitely far off from that. And we'll have to see what kind of power we can get at this, but this is this is really cool. So think of to take what John said scientifically and put it into normal person's terms. Think of a biological brain like a house. And until now, we've just been looking at the outside of the house. Connectome is a full set of architectural blueprints, every wire, every switch, and every outlet inside the walls. So the brain emulation is taking those blueprints and building a digital replica of the house inside the computer. So currently, AIs like LLMs require massive power plants to run, but biological brains run on energy equivalent of a crumb of food. So copying biology could save the AI energy crisis, or could just change, where energy comes from in the future. This is definitely incredible. Maybe you're like giving your laptop part of your sandwich in the future at lunchtime. It moves us from an AI that predicts text to an AI that perceives and navigates the world like a living creature. It's very interesting. So this, could have impacts on our life, like smarter robotics, vacuum cleaners, drones that could navigate chaotic swarms as easily as a fly that zips around the kitchen without getting stuck. But imagine self-driving that can handle this and making those moving instinctive and automatic. AI chips in your phone that last for days, not hours, because they mimic efficient biological circuits, or even medical breakthroughs, testing drugs on digital brains instead of animals, speeding up cures or for neurological diseases.
Yeah. So the and talking about ambitions and challenges here. Well, the fruit fly, obviously, we talked about is magnitude simpler than human brains. The thing is its connectome provides a manageable yet non-trivial testbed. So the early work focuses on simulating this nervous system and linking the model to simple robotic interfaces to test the behavior. So their long-term ambition, obviously, is human brain emulation. So the challenges with that is scaling data collection, capturing neurochemical and temporal dynamics, understanding how abstract cognitive functions emerge from circuitry. And so there's a lot more there, but this effort, it does represent the most direct attempts yet to reverse engineer biological intelligence using software, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and this raises some ethical and philosophical concerns. Brain emulation raised profound questions around, as connectome startups progress towards sophisticated emulation, society must consider issues of digital consciousness, morale status, identity, consent, and privacy, and what that means. But according to some of these timelines, even though I think with quantum computers, these are going to be rapidly accelerated. Right now, with the fly brain is mapped, they say it's going to take decades to get small mammals like mouse and such mapped, and 100+ years to get a full human brain emulation.
Yeah. Wow. There's like, I love that they're moving forward with this. I'm curious to see how this would relate to the brain on a chip that we had discussed previously. So this is really cool. I'm really excited for this.
Well, I'm hoping that eventually, all these companies will borrow from each other. So the next version of, a brain on a chip will use some of these things that Amazing is publishing and talking about, and vice versa, to make it all better. So we'll have to wait and see. So keep an eye on Amazing. They're the ones putting out these digital brains into robot bodies. So we'll see that. Don't expect the mind uploading to be a consumer product in our lifetime. But this is a multi-generational scientific project that's interesting. So, this is a shift from artificial intelligence to artificial life, building systems that think because they are wired to think, not just trained to predict.
Yeah.
So the big question, if the tech existed tomorrow, would you upload your brain to the cloud or keep it analog? Let us know what your comments are, and we'll keep watching this story closely. Imagine a single construction project costing $500 billion. that's bigger than the entire economy of some countries. The creators of ChatGPT, NVIDIA, and Oracle are teaming up to build it right in the US. But the government thinks this dream team might actually be an illegal monopoly in the making. It's called Stargate. It's called Project Stargate, a massive collaboration between the heavy hitters of tech, OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Oracle. They plan to build a network of supercomputers across the US to power the next generation of artificial intelligence. While they claim it will cure diseases and secure US leadership, critics warn it creates a choke point where three companies control the most important resources of the future: AI computing power. What do you think about this, John?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the article itself because I thought that they were actually building a real Stargate before I read it. So I was all excited that, hey, AI's got something going on, and they figured it out, and we're getting a portal to other dimensions or whatever.
So we talked about Project Stargate before, where they were planning on building a bunch of these data centers across the U.S. with money from the government on all this. So critics are now coming along saying, "Hey, wait a minute, why only these three companies? Why are they getting the money? Et cetera, et cetera." And it's all, it is what it is, right? Do you want to be leadership? The US government says we need to be a leader in AI and we want to make these investments, and whatever bidding process or whatever, they pick these companies. Great. Now they're going to say, why'd you pick these companies? Why isn't everybody else involved? Why? And they'll ideally figure out a better solution that includes more like Anthropic and a few other people that get to be a part of this and potentially build a better AI future for North America. But as it stands right now, this seems like a big boys club. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is let's talk about that antitrust a little bit. So the guy from Yale Law, he was arguing that it could violate the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act, which are core US antitrust statutes. I think we covered the Sherman Act before. But so these laws essentially prevent collaborations that restrain competition, it reduce price pressure, or create monopolistic control, for those of you that don't know. So the concern isn't just about existing power, but future competitive harm. So when rivals share strategic decisions or infrastructure, they may have reduced incentive to innovate, undercut prices, or compete for customer independently. So the examples underscored include questions about whether Oracle will continue aggressive pricing against Microsoft cloud services when both benefit from Stargate's success, or whether NVIDIA and Microsoft will continue competing on their own AI hardware roadmaps when bound in a shared infrastructure venture. Again, with the current administration, who knows what is going to happen of this? In my opinion, I think it'll get the go ahead. If it was another administration, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if they are smart, they would figure this out and take this to the Supreme Court now. If there's issues, exactly, like get it dealt with this administration, next administration. If we're talking about this level of investment, and this is why it's hard to do this kind of infrastructure in the US and Canada, and why nuclear is usually a problem, because it takes years and years of investment. And if the political winds blow a different direction, the next admin can come in at any time and cancel these projects, and people are out billions of dollars. So the thought is, hey, get this figured out now, because if this truly is for a US or North American or whatever AI at foothold advantage, then don't have us set back by the next administration because you decided to favor three companies, that you decided to do these things. So I don't know if we're on the same page. I want the project to go ahead, but I want it to go ahead in a legally approved and fair framework that gets approved by the Supreme Court, so it doesn't get canceled later. And hopefully that includes more people, and like more companies and more involved for whatever level, at whatever level. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Like, and yeah, I kind of agree with you. I want it to go ahead, but I want it to go ahead with a fair legal analysis and check off, not a one-sided legal, if I can put it politically correct.
Well, that's why I said go take it to the Supreme Court. Like that's why I mean,
yeah, but the Supreme Court is heavily favored to one side.
yeah, you say favored to one side, but they're favored towards the law. You sit back and say, here's the thing. The point is they're setting precedent for everything in the future. They're not just making one decision. That's why, it, I'm not going to say it's this or that, like Trump, hate Trump, whatever. The point being is put the legal framework in place that makes it fair, that'll pass the legality tech, and the Supreme Court goes ahead, so it's legal for the future. What that means, have 10 AI companies, have more database companies, have this and that. But the other problem is, if it's all the secure data, how do you secure all the people involved? How do you secure all the information involved, and secrets don't get leaked? So some stuff needs to be done. But I'm a little bit afraid of, the government gets involved and it's analysis by paralysis. We spend all the money in meetings and doing whatever, and nothing gets done. So I want the middle ground where we move forward. We move forward with a solid legal framework that works, because that's not a monopoly. That is however it works. Say, hey, you're going to don't build one, you're building 5 of these. So don't build a $500 billion one, build 3 $200 billion ones or whatever. And one's going to be run by Anthropic and somebody else. And I don't know. I have to look at the data. But the point being is we have time now to sit back and say, this is great. We love the basic concept of the idea. But we don't know if I sit back and say, in my capacity, I don't know if these guys are going to be the leaders in 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Why would we put all our money in one basket?
Yeah, exactly.
So anti-competitor, whatever, or just say, if it was Canada and I say, this is our AI future. Yeah, sure. OpenAI is a leader and what have you, but they've also proven that other companies can surpass them pretty quickly so why would we not have Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, whoever, 5 or 6 saying, let's work together.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what that means. I don't know what that means. That might be separate data centers for each of these that we can pump into and use them specialty. And I'm also the right tool for the right job. Each of these LLMs excel at different things. So when you start putting these together, I'm a little concerned about the monopoly. I'm also a little concerned about, the government just slowing things down. But
yeah,
I do want the stuff to proceed in a non-monopolistic style, so that we can actually proceed, and that other companies and other things can start to do the same thing and compete, because you put a legal framework in place. Like I said, if Anthropic doesn't be part of this, they're raising for 300 million. They could work with someone else and say, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to compete, but we're building our own. Great. Yeah. We've already got the groundwork to show you how to do it. Competition welcome. Let's go. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, and I'm not an expert on the ins and outs of legal stuff here, but I like the idea of where Project Stargate is going, and the medical breakthroughs and the other things we could get out of it are just such a big advantage that I don't want it to slow it down too much. So I'm with you that we have to make sure that there's some restraints of trade and monopolization, but now's the time, right? Like now's the time to address these issues and say, okay, how do we do this? How do we make more people involved? How do we take this stuff away and make it less barrier to entry for other people? And say, okay, we'll give you, we're dividing up, we're building this data infrastructure, but everybody gets NVIDIA chips. Well, Amazon says we got our own chips and Google's got their own chips. Why aren't you buying our chips? So at some point, you have to kind of say enough's enough, but I don't know where that is.
Exactly. Yeah. This seems to me like it should be more like an RFP kind of thing, instead of just these companies coming together, if that makes sense. Like there should be for each stream of work that or expertise, there should be an RFP for companies to get involved. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and again, it just depends on how much money of this is covering from the government versus private sector.
Yeah.
You know, if most of it's coming from the private sector, I think we have less say.
Yeah. Yes.
But we'll have to see. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are, because this is, you know, it's getting 500 billion is comparable to the national electric grid, right? And so they're building it in Abilene, Texas, New Mexico, and Michigan. There are 3 locations apparently.
Okay.
And they're using NVIDIA GPUs, Oracle Cloud, and OpenAI models. So investment at this level creates barriers that competitors simply cannot match. Investment at this level creates, same thing again. The legal framework being used to judge this futuristic AI projects comes from the Sherman Act of 1890, a law written 135 years ago to break up road tycoons and oil barons. So we'll have to see. I do hope this goes up and things get worked out so that it become building these big AI data centers becomes a regular thing rather than legal super hoops that people have to jump through. But it needs to be accessible to the companies that are at the right level to do this kind of thing. So Stargate could be the engine that drives humanity to a new golden age of science, but the price might be handing the keys of the future to just 3 CEOs. Do you trust a $500 billion monopoly to play fair, or should the government step in before the ground is broken? Drop comments below, because this affects every piece of tech you'll use for the next 10 years. We'd love to hear what you think. Back to one of your favorite topics.
We haven't talked about it in a while.
Agreed. We've been promised a hydrogen future for decades, but it's always been too hot, too dangerous, too expensive to store. While scientists in Tokyo just fixed the biggest problem with hydrogen power, they made a battery that runs at the same temperature as your morning coffee, and it might finally kill the gas engine for good. Researchers at the Tokyo Institute have developed a solid-state hydrogen battery. Instead of storing hydrogen gas in massive, explosive, high-pressure tanks, this technology traps it safely inside a solid material, magnesium hydride. Crucially, they've managed to make it work at low temperatures around 90 degrees Celsius, meaning we could finally have hydrogen cars and home batteries that are safe, compact, and energy efficient. What do you think about this, John?
I love this. So as you know, I'm a huge proponent of hydrogen because it only emits water when used in fuel cells. So when you convert it to energy, you get water. So the problem is storing hydrogen, like you just talked about, has been a huge engineering challenge. And we've covered some topics where they were able to raise the temperature a little bit when storing it at a gas, but this is different. So just to talk about that, when it's stored as a gas, it's got to be compressed to 350 to 700 bar or liquefied at negative 252.8 degrees Celsius, both of which require expensive infrastructure and high energy input. So traditional solid state storage using materials like magnesium hydride has high theoretical capacity, but until now, it demanded very high operating temperatures to absorb and release hydrogen. Plus, it suffered from poor reversibility and performance loss. So what the research team at Science Tokyo did was they overcame these limitations by creating a hydrogen battery that works at about 90 degrees Celsius, which, like we just talked about, is a dramatic reduction in temperature requirement. So the system uses a novel solid electrolyte with a crystal structure, which enables efficient transport of hydrogen ions. So what this does is it allows hydrogen to be stored and released through electrochemical processes, much like in conventional batteries, but with hydrogen instead of lithium ions moving through the electrolytes. I think this is a cool advancement. I love it. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I
Is
think
this
it's really cool. This, if it turns out to be what it says it's going to be, this might finally be the thing that gets hydrogen rolling, as it were. I like to think of this as a battery, or this battery, like a hydrogen sponge. Instead of pumping gas into a balloon, which requires high pressure, the battery chemically soaks up hydrogen into a solid block of magnesium. And to get the energy back out, you just reverse the flow. And so currently, hydrogen cars, like you said, have to be pressurized to 700 bar, and that's pretty intense pressure. Old versions of this tech would need to be heated to 300 degrees Celsius plus to work, and the new versions work at 90 to 100 degrees, drastically reducing the energy needed to run.
Yeah. So let's talk about why the breakthrough matters for vehicles. We'll talk about vehicles because we've talked about them in the past. So hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, they're already in limited commercial use today. We talked about Toyotas, we talked about BMWs, we talked about I can't remember who else. But so just to give you an example, the hydrogen Mirai, it offers 300 miles of range with quick refueling. However, existing fuel cell vehicles, they still rely on compressed hydrogen tanks and complicated storage systems, because we just talked about how it needs to be stored at certain bar and certain temperature. So lower temperature hydrogen batteries like this technology, it actually could reduce the infrastructure requirement. It could improve safety. It could make onboard hydrogen storage simpler and more efficient, which could help drive broader adoption of hydrogen-powered cars, buses, potentially even trucks or trains. And I think we talked about a plane too. So in addition to lower operating temperatures, and reduce thermal stresses and energy losses, which can improve system longevity and reduce maintenance. So those are some critical factors in automotive and industrial energy applications. So I like it. I like that this is that they're still moving technology forward, because we haven't really covered too much. There have been some breakthroughs, but nothing for us to really cover. I think this is one of those great breakthroughs. Now, are we going to see hydrogen batteries in our cell phones? I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
This could impact us, like you mentioned, safer EVs. Cars won't need heavy bulletproof gas tanks, making them lighter and roomier. Home power, you can store solar energy for weeks in a solid block in your garage, not just overnight in a Tesla Powerwall. Cheaper grid, it uses common materials like magnesium rather than rare conflict-heavy minerals used in the current batteries. So, these things are still 5 to 10 years away, because currently in the lab. And right now, they exist at a coin cell, so the size of a watch battery kind of thing. Scaling this up to a car battery without losing efficiency is a pretty big engineering hurdle. So we'll have to see where that go. Even though it's a battery, it still needs hydrogen gas fed into it. That means you still need pumps and tubes, adding complexity compared to a simple plug-in wire. And we don't know yet if this material degrades after thousands of charges. So can it last 10 years in a car? We don't know yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just, sorry, to kind of talk through how a hydrogen battery works. So in a traditional lithium-ion battery, where lithium ions shuffle between electrodes, hydrogen battery, like we talked about, uses hydrogen ions moving through a superionic solid electrolyte. And it's made up of a lot of different chemicals, which I'm not going to get into. So during charging, the MgH2, which I don't know what, I think that's the ion, no, it releases, so the electrolyte releases ions that travel through during charging, there is a material that releases hydride ions that travel through the electrolyte and form hydrogen gas. So the process reverses during discharge. And so this electrochemical mechanism, it's similar in principle to rechargeable batteries, but tuned for hydrogen molecules and hydrate transport. So that's kind of the difference between a lithium-ion battery and hydride or hydrogen battery. So just to kind of, I know I got confused explaining it because it's not fully, I'm not fully understanding it. I'm not a full expert, although I do love hydrogen. I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
I love where this is going, but it's going to take a while. So don't hold your breath for buying a new vehicle, because it's going to take, 5 to 10 years at least.
Yeah.
When reading news, keep looking out for solid state hydrogen specifically, because that'll be referring to this type of technology. And it's just the holy grail for people living off the grid who need long-term storage, and for heavy-duty transports like trucks and ships where heavy lithium batteries don't make sense. So we'll have to see where this goes. The battery doesn't move lithium ions like your phone. It moves hydride ions, like you were saying. It essentially uses hydrogen itself to carry the charge through the solid crystal lattice. So what's the verdict? This proves we don't need high pressure explosives to store clean energy. We needed better chemistry. So would you trust a solid hydrogen block in your basement, or are you sticking with lithium? Let me know in the comments, and we'll keep watching this story closely.
I didn't realize the time. Jesus.
Oh, we're on our last one.
Yeah, I got a hard stop at 9. But
all right, so we don't. Yeah, it's all right. We don't have to do pie.
No, we can do it if we want to do it quickly.
We've known the value of pi for thousands of years, but theoretical physicists have just stumbled upon a new way to calculate it using rules of quantum mechanics. If you thought math was a solved game, you need to hear how particle physics are rewriting the rule book on the world's most famous number. Researchers from the Indian Institute of Science have found a new series representation for pi by looking at high energy particle physics using the Feynman diagrams, which map how you say that?
Feynman, yeah.
Which maps how subatomic particles interact. They discovered a hidden pathway to calculating pi that connects quantum field theory directly to pure number theory. It's news not because it's breaking speed records, but because it proves deep, unexpected mathematical links between the physical universe and abstract math. What's going on here, John?
Yeah, so like you said, pi, it's a transcendental and it's an irrational constant. It expresses the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. This means it has infinite non-repeating digits. I think I've met 3.14159265854, I think, is as far as I've gotten in my memory. But so classical geometry and calculus, they've introduced ways to approximate pi through an infinite series. So that's expressions that add up an endless sequence of terms to approach pi's value. So early examples include Madhava's series from medieval India and later formulations by Leibniz and others. So modern computational methods used refined series to compute pi to trillions of digits. But mathematicians still seek new efficient expansions that converge more quickly with fewer terms. So the article talks about how they developed a new representation of pi while modeling quantum particle interactions. So what they did was they used techniques from quantum mechanics, notably what you talked about, Feynman's diagrams, for particle scattering and the Euler beta function. So that's a tool in string theory. And what they did was they built a series whose terms converge on pi. So these physics-inspired mathematical tools allowed them to construct an expression that approaches pi more efficiently than some traditional series by requiring fewer terms for a given precision. So in mathematical terms, this kind of series representation works because it leverages underlying symmetries and integrals common in quantum field calculations. So some infinite series naturally converge on constants like pi. By reformulating quantum amplitude integrals, the physicists turn complex physics calculations into an optimized mathematical expression for pi itself. That's a lot of information. That's quite complex. But again, I love that they're like the pi it's not just a geometry constant. It's woven through physics. It's woven through engineering, and number theory. Like it's not just one thing, right? And I love that.
Yeah, and I like to think of this as calculating pi is like following a recipe. So for centuries, you use grandma's recipe, a classical math, which works well, but takes lots of steps. And scientists just found molecular gastronomy recipe. It used completely different ingredients, particular scattering formulas to bake the exact same cake, but much easier. So just keep that in mind. I maybe even like a TikTok video. Now they show, you used to bake pasta like this, but now you just put it in a bake pan and the sauce and close it up and you're done. It's a whole new way of doing it, and it's much easier. So definitely this will potentially lead to smarter algorithms, simulation tech. It could lead to more accurate physics engines and scientific simulations. And there won't be a lot of change for the average user. Your calculator app won't change. NASA only needs about 15 digits of pi to land a rover on Mars, and we already have that. So, but it's interesting that, beyond when we're talking about string theory and the universe, this will allow us to complicate things a little bit better.
Yeah.
So having said all of that, quantum pi is a masterpiece of theoretical beauty that unites physics and math, even if it isn't replacing our supercomputer algorithms just yet. So does knowing the universe has hidden connections excite you, or do you just want your computer to run faster? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So it's February. What do you got going on, John?
Yeah, I guess we've got a Flowgrammer event. We've got a startup drinks. Hopefully it's not too cold out there, or we hopefully haven't gotten too much snow, but who knows with this winter we're having so far. And we're getting into shred season. What about you, Craig?
Well, you mentioned it. We have a lot of Flowgrammer events going on, so definitely check out flowgrammers.ca. In 2026, we're doing 4 events a month, 2 online and 2 in-person events. So if you can't make it downtown Toronto, definitely check us out online. And our first Flowgrammer Cafe is January 9th. We've secured the location. I know this is February, but there'll be another one in February, then another one in March. And we also do the cafe is an all-day long drop-in session with other builders. You just bring your laptop, bring your headphones, work. We supply the coffee and the Wi-Fi and the place to work, and you're just with other builders. And so there will be some conversation and whatnot about what you're building or getting help from someone else or how would you do this. But generally it's, get your head out of your own space and come work with other builders for the day and get caffeinated and be part of the community. So check all those out at flowgrammers.ca. And for everything else, check out torontostarts.com, where we help startups. We run startup investor drinks events. We do workshops. We do coaching, anything related to startup ecosystem in Toronto. Check out torontostarts.com. And for non-dilutive funding, John, where do they go?
Yeah, come find me on LinkedIn. It's probably your best bet. Add me on LinkedIn. Send me a message letting me know kind of what you're looking for, and we can get started on a conversation for sure. If you need more than just non-dilutive funding help and you need help with your business overall, how can they find you, Craig?
Yeah, just head over to torontostarts.com. It's all there. Startupcoach.ca. It's the same website. Just book a meeting with me, a free discovery call or something else to see how we can help, or come out to one of our events. All our events are listed there or on the flowgrammer.ca, and just check out everything there. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching, and we'll talk to you all soon.